Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey podcast. I'm joined today, and as always, nearly always, by my good friend, Jason Neil Patrick Harris Johnston Yellen. Jason, how are you on this gorgeous Monday day? Oh, it's Wednesday. Sorry. I take that back. For our listeners, on this gorgeous Wednesday.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go this beautiful July day, and then you just went with Monday. And so you meant Wednesday, and here we are, Joshua. It is quite warm in Virginia, if you're keeping track at home. I have had friends from Scotland email, text. Some of them have put pen to paper and used the United States Postal Service to say, what are your temperatures like? And I have said they are warm, but they're not silly. They're not crazy. For European listeners and those who use the centigrade, we have kind of been averaging about 30 degrees centigrade in Virginia. Sunny, afternoon thunderstorms. You know, your sunflowers get split in two by the thunderstorms. But other than that, tickety-boo.
Well, I'm glad to hear all that. You know what I'm even more glad
Oh, I know. I know exactly what you're more glad for.
We've got quite the episode. We have, to join us through the duration of this 7-hour episode, we're going to have both our very own Jessica Rabbit Lomas with us.
Hi.
Hi, Jess.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to be seen, and nice to see you as well. And then we've got Christoffer, SwedeScot, Hällström, which I think that's how it's shown on your birth certificate.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. And thanks for having me, guys.
It's lovely to see your smiley face. No response from him. Why is Jason hitting on me in the first 60 seconds of today's episode? You're looking very handsome, Christoffer.
Thank you.
He's got the nerves because
You're
if you think about it, last time he was on the podcast, you three were all scrunched up in the back of a car as we were zooming around Washington State. So what he's really missing is the gentle reassurance from your hand on his knee. That's why he didn't respond. He's not used to it.
It feels a bit weird.
I did also tell him he was handsome when I had my hand on his knees. So, you know.
Exactly. I was missing the hand. It was the hand I was missing, and it would have just felt me a bit more comfortable in the company.
Well, you'll have to do with Jess's hand on your knee for the duration of this conversation.
Oh, no.
For the listeners at home, my hands are in the air. Nowhere near his knees.
If this was...
and she's waving them around as if she just doesn't care as well.
Okay, I've got my paging HR button ready.
So I brought us here for a very important reason, and that's, of course, to discuss Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny. I mean, by now, all four of us will have
keep
watched
the spoilers
this.
under your fedora. This is an indie free zone for the moment.
Haven't seen
Jason? Nope.
Oh my God. Jess, Chris.
Yeah, Barbie. The movie Barbie. Yeah.
Did you like Barbie?
Oh, Barbieheimer? I think it's Barbieheimer. Open Barbie?
Yeah.
Is Open Barbie the new AI
It's
chat?
all in pink.
He's called Open Barbie. Okay, so you three have failed me. You haven't seen Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And we all know that our listeners are desperate to know what we think before they spend their good hard-earned money to watch it and make their own decisions on the film. I won't even tell you if I liked it or not.
Okay.
But that's homework for next episode. I want to hear people's thoughts. Anyway, the real reason we're gathered here is to talk about a subject that all four of us have talked about for 7+, 8+ years, whatever. And it's a subject that many of our listeners think about quite often because they're likely spending good money via one of these services, but the idea is whiskey options.
That's good. I was really worried we were going to continue down the film critic route, which the regular listeners to the podcast will famously know. I've actually only ever seen a maximum of 4 films in my entire life. And they're not the 4 you guys have seen, so... Yeah. This would have been a really short movie.
One of them now Barbie.
No, not even Barbie. It's on the list. It's on the list. That's the week after's homework, I think, right? Yeah, I feel like whiskey auctions is a much safer topic of conversation.
A safe zone, is that what you're saying?
A safe zone, yeah. Safe space.
Well, you both saw kind of the inception of whiskey auctions up close and very personal, and one of you continues to live inside that ring day in and day out, and one of you, Jess, has stepped out of the ring and into the independent bottlers ring, which is another conversation for another day. But in the beginning, the inception of this, what did you think when you were seeing the birth of whiskey auctions up close and personal? And if you can throw a year on that or an approximate year on that, that would be appreciated.
So for me, I started over 10 years now ago, and it was an online whiskey auction where we started, and it all started with a very small, about 600-700 bottles a month. Maybe the best way to describe it is that at that time there was nothing that was being done online. Everything was unofficial. Like, you would go in, you would raise your hand, and you would win a bottle, and you would go out, and that was it. However, you could obviously call in, and you could get your bids in. This was the first time when someone have kind of put it together in UK, and what happened was that you placed a bid. When you won that, you actually had a chance of someone shipping it to you. And I think that was kind of revolutionary at that time, to be in one place at one time. And it was going on a monthly, every single month. At the same time as this, we also had eBay, and you were allowed to sell in UK on eBay in the beginning, and that was a big difference. A couple of my friends, that's kind of how I fell into it, was that my friends were selling on eBay. I had just started university, and was kind of offered a job to work in an auction house. So that's kind of a little bit of my background, and it really took off when they really closed down eBay. I think that was when it all stopped, and that would have been 2013, I think.
Yeah, maybe just before.
Just before, and that's really when it changed from everyone was selling a little bit. You would go over to our listener have obviously listened to the Fesh episode, and you guys have talked about that. I used to see people stand in the queue, take a photo, and they will upload it at the festival in 2011, 2012.
That still happens because eBay in the UK, you can't sell alcohol, but eBay in Germany, you can. So if you want to see the first place that you can get festival bottles, quite often literally hot off the press from the distillery shop. Sometimes I've seen the pictures where they've got like
in the queue,
like on the either in the queue, but like they've put the bottle on the wall outside the distillery, and it's instantly up on German eBay, which I think's yes, I feel like there's going to be a lot of write-in contentions about feelings about this topic. But yeah, so that's usually like the quickest way, isn't it? But we were I was just a little bit behind you. I started doing it in 2013, and it was really just starting to take off. So I think the people were sort of getting to grips with the idea of you no longer had to be physically in an auction house. So we have one. In fact, we did at the time have two here in Glasgow. There's only one remaining, which they would divide up. Like they'd have a specialist wines and spirits auction, and and then the usual categories that you expect, like household goods, artware, jewelry, watches, that kind of thing. So that's really where it stems from. But there wasn't. In 2013, it was a new concept, the idea of a dedicated online auction just for whiskies. A little bit of other stuff, but predominantly whiskies was pretty much unheard of. And I'd say there was kind of... we were in the first one, and then kind of a couple of others popped up not long after we started. But the early days of it were crazy. We would get people would come to the office literally from all over the world to kind of come and see what this funny little address was, what was happening. I've had more than a handful of conversations with people who had flown in just with bottles in their suitcase to hand it in to get back on a flight to leave Glasgow on the same day, not even taking in a swift half at the Bonaccord or a cheeky dram in the pot still, and straight back to the airport, back on a plane, and go home again. So
I think it's that as well. It was actually people would actually just fly in to see if it was real.
yeah,
Because they had because you didn't have the same kind of, you have a bit of review websites today, but even back then you wouldn't really see people talking about it in the same way as we see today, like Trustpilot or anything like that.
FIFO. I was always fascinated by people who had. I mean, like, I don't know if either of you two. I mean, I don't think we've ever had anyone come from America, but definitely from mainland Europe. And we are obviously talking pre-Brexit era, so pre-COVID and so slightly different aviation times. But yeah, people would come from mainland Europe and just because they also couldn't really get their heads around it. So rather than just putting their, whiskey bottles that they wanted to sell and have arrive in good condition in a jiffy bag with "to the auction house" on it, they would come and check it out in person. Bizarre, totally. Yeah, when you start meeting these people.
So you're talking 2013-ish for that, and I remember here in the U.S. too, right? There was a period of time where bottle sales were allowed on eBay, and that went away. I think that likely went away quicker in the U.S. than maybe it did in the U.K. But there was always that German one that's been around since the late 90s, and they seem to be, like the proto auction site that maybe others sort of based their
Thomas Kruger's auction house, which
to?
Now you've said that, I don't know if I can put a starting year on it. Do you know a year?
Yeah,
I think it was 94, 95, 97.
7. No, it was 90. According to their website, it was
fact checking us.
97.
I think if you look at their website, and I don't think I'm being too mean when I say this, their website is very much still based in 1997. It's got
even the new one. It's a great auction, and I visit it. But even the new version, which came out last year, still has a older.
I feel like it's a halfway house between GeoCities and a tartan carpet in a Highland house. That's the vibe. And if you are under 25, neither of those references will mean anything to you. But yeah, it's got a GeoCities website feel to it, right? It's not even the newer one's not. So yeah, there was a pre-existing one in Germany when we started working, but that was kind of it. And I think it's also because traditionally and even today, the idea of moving bottled spirits is problematic. Couriers don't really want the responsibility of smashy packaging. The Royal Mail here, our postal service, certainly don't want to be dealing with wet boxes. And then, of course, you have the question of like legality, making sure that the person who's holding the box when the postie gets to the door is old enough to be buying booze. And then you add that in with like international countries where obviously in the UK you have to be 18 to buy booze, but it's 20 in Sweden and 21 for you guys in the US, and lots of other countries have different rules. Plus the import taxes. It's a bit of a nightmare, even now, when it's, I would say, probably much more commonly done and easily managed. I think, that there was a lot of kind of unknowns and nobody really testing it. So I guess in the early days, people just were staying in their little corner of the internet. If you think about it, other products, not just, auctioned whiskies, things like there wasn't an Amazon, there wasn't online retailing, didn't really exist in the same way it does now.
Yeah.
So I think people just weren't used to it. There wasn't systems in place.
Yeah, and I think as well, though, if we're thinking back we go back to Kruger when he started. Germany is a massive whiskey market. They had an internal market that was big enough to be supported. So he wouldn't have sent cross-border as much as he will do today. And I think that's a really big thing that we kind of forget about, because if you listen to old stories within the whiskey industry, there were so many auction houses within UK, they would have whiskey like on the side track, and that's how you could get hold of some. Was I think what I kind of understand from friends, Germany was the first one. And because it wasn't a language barrier, because it was in English, it wasn't Google Translate. That was how it was. And it was an easier way, and kind of shipping came down in price, I think, like boxes and kind of logistic, it was easier to start picking out a courier. Like in that kind of 2008, 2009, going forward, they were more installment of like actually couriers would go and try to sell you a service, whilst I think beforehand it was an inconvenience for them. They saw the potential with whiskey, and obviously we have all heard about the olive oil and the lava lamp that people used to send to each other on all these other kind of things.
Olive oils? Lava. I have to say, while you said lava lamps, I've never understood that as a description for a box. Like, nobody... I don't even know you'd buy a lava lamp. Like, why would I be posting it across the world? Oh, don't you dare say your other passion is lava lamp collecting.
Yeah.
I may or may not have used that term 2 or 3 times. Lava lamps. Who's going to question?
When did you last buy a lava lamp? I mean, like, I'm not a member. I'm not here on behalf of the feds or anything. I'm just curious. It's a very dated reference. I get the olive oil and I get the what are the other ones we've seen? Homeopathic liquids and that kind of balsamic vinegar.
Anything that's a liquid, basically.
It's probably recent enough. I want to say 68, 69, so somewhere around there. That's when I purchased my last lava lamp.
I don't know if I even have ever... I remember my friends having a lava lamp and I coveted it, but I never... Maybe I should see if they still have it and if they want to post it to me. I'd be like, hey, just slap lava lamp on the box. Put your 1960s Bowmores underneath it. Everyone will be like, it's a lava lamp. It's no questions asked. Yeah.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head. Everybody loves a lava lamp.
Yeah.
So with all of that said, when you've got courier services coming in the door looking for the auction house business, did it feel like it was legitimized overnight? Was there an awareness on behalf of the courier service that this is going to happen, we might as well get on board with it? The reason I'm asking this question is it's an ongoing conversation here in America. Is you can ship wine, you can ship beer, those can go across borders. Whiskey is an entirely different business. And there's this kind of strange...
Distilled spirits specifically.
Right. And there's just this kind of hesitancy to move up into the world of distilled spirits. But wine have cracked the code and beer have cracked the code. Did it feel like the code had been cracked when courier services were coming in your door?
Yeah, I think so. Like, when kind of thinking back, there was mainly like 3 companies that really tried to get business from you. And it was because of before Brexit, you could send to all over Europe without a problem. So obviously being origin from Sweden, we have a monopoly. It's normally hard to get anything into the country, but when it kind of came down to that rule was that you could ship it in, you were supposed to declare it yourself that you had purchased this liquid and you would pay the tax. So for them, the way they were talking about it is, okay, so we have a network for you and this is what we can offer. So these are the countries we can ship to and these are the countries we can't ship to. So there were certain circumstances that you couldn't ship to certain countries, but it was very much of Europe is open, you can do business in these countries. So they would come in and I think with anyone that's working in sales, they promise you the world. And it was very much promising the world. And you can kind of see it now with the couriers coming in today. The same companies, they're much more switched on the questions you are going to ask them, what the volumes they're talking. Like it's a giant leap. Like before, I think it was a much more kind of like, we'll try it and see who we can sign on and we start doing this. Whilst back then, it was really hard to kind of get a direct answer from them. And then you started working with them and you would see what you will get out. Whilst today, they know exactly what they can do, what they can't do. Brexit obviously have changed the whole business, which has become fun in my day-to-day work, but back then it was literally people would pay the taxes, you would send it out, and then everything got resolved by the courier, and it would be delivered.
I think as well, there's definitely been a shift when you have conversations with these couriers. I think in the UK, it's not seen differently really between shipping spirits to wine to beer. I think that was more about concern about safely shipping liquids, because we in the UK, our licensing isn't quite as strange as the US, so we don't divide it up in quite the same way. The questions were about how are you packing this, what happens if it gets broken, how does it get replaced. We don't divide the sales in quite the same way, because what you're talking about with DTC for like wines and beers is still all very much tied in, like post-prohibition, the 3-tier system. It's tied to a system we don't have here in the UK. Like, for example, it's not illegal to send alcohol in the post here. There are a few little asterisks there that are to do with like sizes and how much. In the same way, it's also not illegal to send it into the UK, to have it cross the UK border. You're going to get charged some taxes, but it's not illegal. You know, assuming you're sending somebody who's old enough to purchase booze, whereas obviously most other countries who have got traditionally much stricter alcohol rules, so like Sweden and like the US, it's not quite so fast and easy. There's a couple of other questions they ask apart from, and can we have our tax money, please? So I don't think the beginning in the early days of shipping whiskey from the auction houses was necessarily about legitimizing it. I think it was about performing a service that not many people had asked for before. So when we would ask questions, more often than not, it was well, I'll look into it and come back to you, because honestly, we couldn't say one way or another, which is something I spent a lot of time playing around with, being like, can we do this? Well, we haven't heard no, so we're just gonna... We'll test that until somebody comes back and says, listen here, that's a no. Okay, well, we'll write that down, and we've learned that lesson. So it's maybe not quite the same way as I think, and that's probably why auctions worked so well in the UK, is it became a hub. Not only is it a source for loads of people to access liquids, because we obviously get incredibly generous releases of all sorts of things, plus you can go to distilleries and get things that you can't get anywhere else. I think it's also because the laws for it are relatively, and I say that gently, relatively not as strict as something as complicated, for example, as setting up in the US, where you've got a big land mass but lots of boundaries and lots of borders that all, once you cross that, have different rules on the other side. Whereas the UK was like, yeah, sure, we're in this really cool thing called Europe. We can send parcels to whoever we like. We didn't really enjoy that, so we cancelled it. I don't know if anyone's told you about it.
Yeah. So, sometimes life can be too easy, I find.
Yeah,
you need to make it more difficult.
Who likes freedom of anything?
Oh, yeah.
It's certainly not the UK.
Yeah.
So we've cancelled that.
No,
and jolly good that's
challenges
working out
that
for
make
us.
life.
So yeah, that gives you a kind of like ability to move things around, I guess, and that grows. But I also think that maybe the times that in the beginning whiskey wasn't as crazy as it is now. I think the kind of people you're encountering at auctions in the early stages were people who certainly had very impressive, and by 2023 standards, weep-worthy collections of whiskey. But there wasn't drops coming out, you know, like distilleries weren't doing releases every month. It was in smaller allocations, and I think more, I want to say kind of like drip fed into the market. You're not disagreeing with me, so maybe I'm kind of along these lines, but like when you were building up a rapport with clients and building the base of who was bringing bottles in to buy and sell, quite often you'd end up with people kind of on both sides. It wasn't just people buying to sell at auction. They had bottles that they were selling to kind of trade up or diversify what they had in the collection, or because they wanted something else.
I do think overall, like, that is a thing that I'm sure we'll get into a bit later, but I still would say a lot of people, even today, they're still the guys that have these beautiful collections and they're looking for something to complete their collection. Unfortunately, I can tell it here because no one is going to obviously tell me off. You're going to never complete your collection because it will be something new coming out tomorrow.
That's how we keep them coming back.
Yeah, no, but I think it's very much of these kind of, you built it up with them for a very long time, and you would see them, they would buy and sell, and I think it was pure love of whiskey, and that's how I fell into it, and also why I've stayed in the auction part is because you just meet some lovely people that they will have stories they can tell you for weeks on end of like how this started and I think we kind of forget about that. This really big human factor is just that instead of being at the big places, Sotheby's and all these very fancy places, like actually when everything moved online, the biggest like number wise is that actually your average Joe could actually start coming in and buying things for a very reasonable price. And I think we kind of forget that when we talk about auction, is that the accessibility to these collections. Unfortunately, I've been in the industry for 10 years, so when it come to me and people were asking me, have you had White Horse from the 60s? Have you tried Johnny Walker Red Label from the 50s? And then you're going, yeah, in Sweden we got Grants, we got Famous Grouse. So yeah, so that was what I could see. So it just opened up a whole new world in whiskey, and really that's when the rabbit hole really opened up for me, and that's why I have no money these days. So
that was a long way of coming around to the I've spent all my money on 1950s Johnny Walker Red Label.
yeah.
It's delicious though. Stop bidding on it. Chris is buying it all. You're making him very poor by contributing.
It's about to get a lot more expensive at auction.
Yeah, thanks to One Nation Under Whiskey. Oh, look what you've done. You should have said you were only buying 1920s Jura. That would have kept them away from you. I think as well, it depends on... It's a great point that you've made about accessibility. So I don't have, like a family whiskey drinking cupboard that I can go into and reminisce and get teary-eyed about old Lafroigs and old Lagavulins and, whatever. So to me and to us as we run whiskey tastings, it's been a great way to access so that you can try these super cool old whiskies and, you can share them with people. You've got a group here together of people who collectively want to try it but aren't going to individually go out and buy 6 dusty 1970s Lafroigs. I wish we all could, but realistically, not possible, right? So if I want to try all these cool old whiskies that people wax lyrical about, that's one way of getting access to trying your little dram of history. The next is obviously to make friends with people who are generous and open very old, expensive whiskies, which is always nice. We have met a few of those people, and I've always told people that I think the whiskey industry and collectors and whiskey fans tend to be incredibly generous with their time, but also their liquids. I've had some amazing whiskies where people just, open them up and try this, try that. So, but as I can't go to a shop to buy a bottle of that, if you want to get in on that action, there has to be other ways to it, and auctions are a great place for it. So that's one of my pro tips, I think, for auctions, because I know we're going to come to the uglier side, perhaps. I can feel it coming.
I want you to put a few more leaves on these branches. You're starting to talk about what you were seeing in the early days and the accessibility that allowed. As we talk about the evolution of what was available via auction, what point did you start noticing overnight flipping? Like you were mentioning earlier, the eBays and in Germany, and you could be taking a photograph at the distillery of the bottle you just stood in line to get. For the auctions, when did it start to become clear that people were going to Spirit of Speyside to buy bottles to put into auction? We're going to the Feis to buy bottles to put into auction. And even I'm only saying this as somebody who watches the auctions. From the inside, did you see that rise? Is that really how things evolved?
I think it's always been there.
Yeah, I would, from day one, I saw guys, they went up to Macallan, the Easter Elkis was dropped, they were in the next day. There's always been there, and if you didn't get it on eBay, and you didn't get it through an online auction, they would have been down at McTears. There also is that what we kind of keep forgetting is that people living in these kind of areas, they will have customers.
Yeah, they caught onto it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If you live up in Speyside, then you are in and amongst the action, aren't you? It's not a drive from Glasgow. Although, some of the stories we could tell you about people going to buy things. So talking of Easter Elkies, we know a guy who used to take a busload of old biddies for their day trip out. He'd get a mini busload of old dears from the local care home and take them up, and he would give them all cash in hand to stand in queue and buy the Macallan Easter Elkies. And he would buy them, like a cup of tea, and they all had like a chippy supper on the way home, and they had a rare old day out. They thought it was great. He'd paid them for the bottles in cash, so he got the bottles at the end, and they had a great time. So
Amazing.
I'd like to say now
there's
that
a movie in there.
there's
There's
the
totally
Macallan
one.
release stories, like there's definitely, I don't know if it'd be funny though. I think it'd be a bit like the Hunger Games. Like some of the stories from the Macallan's releases definitely ring true with that,
Well, yeah.
right? Maybe that's where it comes
There's,
from, the inspiration actually.
You've heard... the Glasgow Kiss actually started at Macallan. Didn't happen in Glasgow.
It's just some angry Glaswegians.
I do feel like this is like the Angel Share movie, but 2.0. Like,
I love that movie.
yeah,
That's
it's such a
exactly
good
what I
movie.
was thinking.
Such a good movie. With Charlie McClane playing 100% himself. Like that's what's great about the film. Everyone else is, and you're like, you've just
100%.
transported him straight into that. I feel like these stories have existed from the beginning. I think once the traction kind of started in the auctions and people started noticing that you could, go and have a day out and you can make a bit of money off the end, I think it increased when that payback got bigger instead of it being, a few pounds here and there, return on the bottle and people were happy. Suddenly there was like real money to be made of it. And that's because more eyes were suddenly looking at not only, that's that whiskey that we want, and that's the start of whiskey becoming an investment commodity. Ugh, what a word. But yet also there were people who genuinely wanted these liquids that had no other way of doing it. I mean, like we've always said it, if you are not on Islay and you want a festival bottle of Lagavulin, again, there are still only a few options you have. The community is very generous, and there'll always be someone, I'm sure, who you can say, I'll swap a dram with you, can you get a bottle? Or if you just really want it, then the auctions are a great way to facilitate that.
And I think as well, though, like as kind of these flippers, as we would kindly put them as, like they basically just go and buy. There are kind of two stories to that. I think it was not just about making money, go home and sit home and you say, I made £150. What a lot of them did was they made, we'll say Macallan as an example. They went up to Macallan, they picked up a bottle, but they really liked Glendronach. They would put all that money they earned into Glendronach. So we're forgetting that kind of step of like, it was a way to access whiskies you can't afford. And I think we kind of forget it in the whiskey community. You manage, because you live somewhere or you're there at that time. I also have heard about people trading and like before sending it off to auctions. Like I've heard all these kind of stories behind, and more people started talking about it, and more clubs found out that you could buy from auctions. It kind of grew by itself. It was word of mouth. It wasn't in your face. It wasn't these now cask investments and talking about £100,000, 1,000% returns. Like it was generally within the whiskey community. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. And the flippers were always there from day one. They were maybe slightly different how they behaved. And I think that is we kind of can follow through. And I think in the early stages, you had the first one, you had the third auction house opening, you had the 10th one opening. All of them is because the demand has kind of grown, and also because there are markets that they have sorted out like how you send into them, and that opens countries where, we say to Taiwan, for example. So when you send to Taiwan, the guys in Taiwan got exclusives that they started sending back. So that kind of all grew by itself. It wasn't today someone put in 30 million invested into the market and then that's the return. It kind of grew because the passion is always to get the bottle that you maybe can't get hold of. So that was what kind of helped it, I think. And it was very natural. And we have seen, there have been a few jumps through the years, but you can have seen literally like a big jump in a distillery and stuff. But it has been steady, constant, steady, like kind of increase year on year. And then obviously when Reuters, the Financial Times, when they start getting involved into it and talk about numbers, that's when you have the next, like, that's the real big investors. It might not, they are looking more from the financial gains compared to maybe in the beginning when it was a lot of people. There were, of course, there will always be one or two that wanted to make money, but it was a lot of them that I met early on that they traded up. But this was a way to trade up.
Yeah, I still meet people even to this day who find it hard to believe that you can auction a whiskey. I think because it's still relatively, in the grand scheme of things, a new concept. There's still plenty of people who only associate auctions with, you know, like Rembrandts and Banksys and like high-end art. They don't really think about the bread and butter of most auction houses is things like house clearances and people inheriting stuff they don't want and auctioning it. I think, you know, in the UK we have a TV show here called Bargain Hunt, and that's the same. They go around getting things and then they auction it off at the end, and they make sort of £5 here, £10 there. And I think people think whiskey would be the same, and there's plenty of people who genuinely don't understand that you could maybe auction whiskey and make loads of money off it. It's still a totally weird alien concept. So it's it definitely has grown, and it grows, I think, and it helps when you get people like newspapers writing articles. We had several people that I can think of who came to auction bottles because they'd seen, you know, oh, maybe whiskey, you should not just give it away to the local church tombola or the gardener who's helped you clean out the shed. You know, you could maybe make a bit of cash off that. And that was, you know, definitely, there was an increase of people coming in and they'd be sort of sheepish, like, I don't know if I'm wasting your time, but I wonder if this is worth any money. And then they pull out a whole bag full of brewers and you're like, yes, we can help you.
See, so that to me, there's this sort of good side of auctions versus bad. And when I say good side versus bad side of auctions, I'm talking about the growth and popularity of auctions and people's accessibility to auctions. Like my neighbor's father-in-law just found some crazy old bottle of Four Roses in a tin decanter, and he's got all sorts of these other bottles. And so I'm gonna, you know, help him and see if he can, you know, get some of these sold because they're of no use to him anymore, and he could use a bit of money. So there's, I think there's some of those good things, right? I bet you there's loads of people who put too much money into Bell's decanters that wish they could do the same with what they have. But then there's the other side of it, and that's the whiskey faking, which I know, you know, the auction houses have, you know, some really good measures in place to ensure that their customers, they're doing the absolute best to ensure their customers aren't receiving a fake, that they aren't inadvertently auctioning off a fake. But I guess the question that's taken me so goddamn long to get to is, have you seen an increase to fake bottles as the popularity of auctions has increased, or is it a much smaller issue than some of us think about?
Would you like to take this very hot potato?
Thanks for passing it over.
And I'll have my 2 pence worth in the end, but I think we should let the man on the front line.
Okay. I think it's been exaggerated overall, and I think it's been from day one. I think it is also exaggerated that the whiskey markets will have crashed over 20 years now, whilst it's been growing. I think that is a lot of rumors going around, and I think it's one of the things that you normally say, Jess, is that like a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. And I think a lot of people point a lot of fingers and saying, that's fake, I know this because I am a collector, I have collected so many years, but it's a totally different brand. I have been told that these are all fake by this guy. He works in a shop. I think that's where the problem is really starting. And it's starting pointing fingers. The auctions, all auction houses have their training. They're like, it's such a thing of like feeling a label. You're looking at the cork. I won't go into all the details because I will bore all of you.
But also because famously listeners to One Nation and a Whiskey are fakers. So they're going to have their pens out. They're going to be writing it down, saving it as PDFs on their desktops. They're going to be knowing how to fake thanks to you.
But exactly. No, but I think like
Smart
just
people.
overall, I think that it does happen. Of course, it happens. It happens in every market in the world. You can only do the absolute best, and every reputable auction house do have a look. And I'm not even joking. Like, when something comes in, even like it could be a tear, and you feeling something feels wrong here. It's a gut feeling, and right away you start. And like, there are maybe misprints on the label, and you're wondering, why have this happened? And then when you're going back to 60s, 70s kind of Gordon MacPhail stuff, and you hear of all these things that have happened.
Topical.
Which is like, they might have, like, the press might have swapped on different places. And like, we got in sometimes saying, that's absolute 100% fake, blah, blah, blah. And like, actually the guy you're selling it, you spoke to him, you find out the whole story, and you're like, this is not fake. Like, what you have done is you have taken an assumption and you have jumped it, and you want to prove yourself for the rest of the people. I think that with a lot of people I've spoken to, and like that really understands what is fake and not, they have a deep knowledge, and they have a really, really good understanding of this is like a warning, like the warning signs of it. And yeah, it's not an easy one to pinpoint, I think, is saying, is it more today? Is it less today? What is most faked in the world is your Johnny Walker Black Label sitting in a bar, and that's why they have changed those pourers within them, because you can't refill the bottle.
Yeah.
That's where the fakery have started from, and that's where most people have made their money. Because this is such a new product. Of course, they were like Macallan 30 in the blue bottle is one of these bottles that come up to mention when you talk about fakes. But that is not what, like, if you're looking at the bigger market picture, is a reason why Diageo is putting in so much money to stop people to refilling Johnny Walker Red and Black.
I think that's a good point, that if we're looking at percentage of inauthentic whiskies, that's most likely where you're going to be. But I understand that sensationally the question is really, how many fake Macallans have you had in the auction? There's a ton of different types of fake too. So we've got a fake where it's a straight up, the liquid inside is not even whiskey. It could be tea. It could be any other kind of spirit that's got a bit of caramel in it. And you've done your best there to, as a Class A, top class faker, you've tried to match your capsules and your labels. I think what's probably much more common, especially in whiskies which are going to auction houses, is that you're passing off. So it could be that the liquid and the glass and the capsule are correct, but you've got new labels. So for example, you've taken a Macallan 12-year-old and put labels on that you're trying to pass it off as an older Macallan. The 30 that Chris is referencing is a well-known problematic, especially from one particular market where the back labels don't match, and that's one of the giveaways. Macallan did a release called the Anniversary Malt, so it's got like little tiny writing on it, and it's got a 25. And one of the tricks that we would use when looking at these is it's known that the printing, if that 2 is printed onto this kind of text, where the bottom line sits, that's sometimes a giveaway that it's embossed on the wrong height. So that's one of the known characteristics that you're looking at. I think it's worth pointing out that most auction houses now are handling pretty high volumes of bottles. Just by kind of handling and being around whiskies, you get a feel for what doesn't feel right. So while Chris is talking about it being a gut instinct, there quite often is something that just makes you think, that's not quite right. That's not the same as. So you can then go and say, well, do we have another one in the warehouse? Let's go see, do these two match? Are they known to be for different markets? So maybe there are going to be some different marks on those labels. Yeah. Are they from the same era? So that paper should feel the same. Like, I used to regularly get laughed at because I'd be like walking around the warehouse touching these labels, because paper is something that's actually, I mean, like, if you're just like, okay, we'll print it, put it on the bottle. But actually, if you are a collector, you're going to know how those bottles and labels feel in your hands. So that can be another thing that makes you think, there's something not quite right here. Lots of brands, especially now the high-end ones, are doing much more to future-proof themselves. Like Macallan heavily invested in the hologram stickers that they have. There's people who are doing like full traceability on their labels, printing on the back that gives you details. Ardbeg have the laser etching on the glass, which the Ardbeg project was fantastic for. That would quite often help you, because that laser etching on the bottle you can't change. So when you go to somebody like the Ardbeg project's website, when you look up that laser code, if it says that it should be an Ariane Besht, but it's got a 1977 Ardbeg label on the bottle, then you know there's something not right there. So it's about kind of getting used to what you're handling. I guess like anything, it comes from practice. It's not an exact science by any measure. And I think most reputable auction houses are always willing to have a conversation with you. If you're not comfortable, take that bottle back off you. Or they're within their rights that if they think you're turning something in that doesn't look right, they're also within their rights to send it back to you and refuse to auction it.
Yeah, and I think that is something that people that are not talked about because it's not sensational. If you have a doubt, you don't want to sell something because your auction house is also on the line. Like when it comes to these things, I think that you think about it and going, am I willing to sacrifice this because I maybe know, like like when it comes to selling, you want to be sure that you are selling the right thing. You don't go in there to think, do you know something? I think of my stock, 10% is probably legit and 90 isn't. You know, like you really, there are things that I've sent back just because it is a question mark. And it's you do a lot of question, and then that's when the questionnaire comes out. You're finding out how they acquired the bottle, and you just start ticking off a big tick off box. And when you kind of feel that no, like this is the paper feels right, this feels right, that's when you make the decision that you're gonna auction it. And I think that's go down to anything. Like you're looking at art, like they do a rigorous project, they like looking into it, and like it would be really good. Obviously you can see technology from universities just like to do with paintings, like they are looking behind, they can see a lot more if it's real or not. I think that they will come with all these new kind of invention that's happening within the industry. Like we were talking about Macallan, like you can't reseal a Macallan, like the cork splits now when you open it, and that is to stop for you to be able to reseal it. The plastic breaks, so it doesn't look as flush anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Which is one of the inventions that are kind of coming in, and it's really good to kind of see that the industry is taking this as well. Like they're taking it because it's about protecting themselves as much as protecting us as an auction house. It's also protecting them for future down the line. And there was a lot of times, because obviously when it comes down to any auction, is that they had been big, like Diageo and stuff wanted to fill up their archives and do special tastings. They would go to an auction house to buy, to then replenish their own stock so they can do a really high-end, old and rare tasting. Because if we're looking back, we say 20 years ago, a lot of them would just sell off all the stock, and then you realize, oh, what happened with my archive?
Also, I don't think it was even as forward thinking as that. It was well, why would we hang on to stuff we don't need it? Like, it takes up space, it occupies a room. I have got a question for you. Can you think of, off the top of your head, what's the best, worst fake you've seen?
I
want to see if yours is the same as mine.
I think there was the Oban.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay.
Yeah, we got in an Oban in a white wine bottle.
So, for those of you at home who have Google at your fingers, I can't remember what year, but as part of the Diageo special releases, there was an Oban 32-year-old, and it's got a grey label and a little neck tag, and we had some come in. So, obviously, while we're talking about fakers being very intelligent and very, forward thinking and good at making things look like other stuff, these guys had bottled, I don't know what the liquid was, but it was in wine bottles with Oban labels attached to it, and we were like, oh, if you're going to come at us with fakes, at least put the effort in, right? Because Oban is quite
distinctive bottle.
Yeah, like it's not an industry tall round. It's, if you're going to fake it, it's quite difficult to get a matching fake bottle. So I wonder at what point the thought was like, it's close enough. No one will notice.
Wow.
We did get in the...
Wow.
It was an Egyptian Chivas Regal, which I haven't spelled the name correctly. It was like Chivas...
True. Yeah.
Chivas Rich or something they called it.
Yeah,
like they had just copied everything and just saw the label. Everything. Oh yeah, it was really bad. But yeah, so you have seen a couple of those where you kind of have a giggle for yourself and you're going, no.
Yeah, there's also been bottles that we have suspected were fake and we've taken them back to the source. the producers, and they've been like, no, that's 100% legit. That batch, we just put the labels on upside down.
I was gonna bring this up. There was a bottle of Glenmorangie, like a distillery only bottling Sauterne cask, 16-year-old or 15-year-old, that I think I got through the auction you were at, Jess, in your previous life. And I received it, and the capsule was really loose. You could just twist it all along, and it looked as if someone may have taken the capsule off, refilled the liquid, and so I reached out to you. Said no. We double checked. We actually reached out to Glenmorangie, and at that time their capsule crimper that affixes it wasn't working, and so they were just using their hand to get it as tight as possible.
And unfortunately, that's from a very
it.
specific era when the bottles are very sought after and now quite pricey. It's from a time when Glenmorangie and Ardbeg first merged. So a lot of the Ardbeg, Lord of the Isles bottlings, the early Ardbeg bottles, and a whole stack of stuff from Glenmorangie at the time, the capsule machine either didn't work or they were using the same machine for both bottle shapes, and it didn't fit either particularly well. So that's why a lot of those early Ardbegs, we used to call them like spinny caps. You could so if they were super loose, we would reject them, and we would have to explain to sellers that we're not necessarily questioning the authenticity, but if this goes to Pizza Capital of the Universe, Connecticut, then I don't want to have to deal with an angry person on the other end of the phone who's like, I think this is refilled and faked, and the cost of bringing it back in.
Yeah, and I think like that's probably the most rejection you have, is actually like something that's that loose that it could be open, and you say, I'm very sorry, but this is an open bottle. I don't doubt you as a person. This is probably exactly what you're saying it is, but we can't take it because literally I can get into it, I can open it, I can pour it out, and then put it back as it is. And I think that's one of those that, a bit fun.
Yeah, whether the bottle's fake now, it could be faked at a future date if that person decides to sell it on.
It's really difficult because you're trying to build a good relationship on both sides. Whilst obviously an auction house's job is to make money, you are also trying to fit this happy medium where the buyers feel like they're getting a bargain, but the sellers feel like they're getting top dollar for their bottles, and kind of keeping everybody happy. It's a really intricate little dance to do, and something like that with the really super spinny caps.
But you're the middleman to make both feel comfortable.
Yeah,
like
exactly
that is really what you're there for, because we have all sat with our friend down at a table, we have all had a whiskey and be like, can I buy that off you? And they say, that's going to be £500, but in your head you're like, no, that's £150. And then the haggling starting, and then it becomes quite sour. Like, that is why you have an auction house, to just cut all of that out so you both can enjoy each other's company.
Are you relaying a personal story? Is that where we're not talking to each other currently?
Yeah, he's just telling everybody how he lost all of his friends.
Last man standing.
But it's because the expectation from a buyer and the expectation from a seller is very different.
Yeah, of course.
On a daily basis, a seller for me that will come, that had never used auction before, they'll go online and they'll see the bottle is worth £1,000. They'll see it, it's an old and rare section on a retailer, and they're thinking, wow, I'm sitting on £1,000. And when they call you, they tell you about this bottle, and you need to give them the bad news of saying it's 1/3 of the price, because they need to make their margins. They can sit for 3 years on their shelf. They don't need to sell it. But in an auction, you're selling it here and now. On these 10 days, this is up. And I think it's about managing those expectations. And it's something that's not talked about. It's a real skill to be able to, like, talk to people and get them to understand, like, the real value of your product from an auction perspective. If you have a friend that will buy it for £1,000, then you have a good friend that wants to buy it for £1,000. But like today, it's so easy to Google. You go in and you can see what is the price, what is an auction price. There's so much history of what a bottle is worth, and like even with people within. Like, when you talk to whiskey, do you think, wow, you have an amazing collection, you've built this, you obviously purchased it. They might have never used an auction, and when they want to get rid of some of their collection, we come back to, that's £1,000, and you're going, no, it's not. It's a £350 bottle.
Yeah.
And that's really hard. They're definitely the hardest conversations to have with people. Because obviously, when you come into an auction to sell, everybody's quite excited about the prospect, and also relatively frequently there's a slightly sad story attached to it. Like, we didn't just deal with people who had bought the bottle yesterday and were bringing it in. There are people who are dealing with, like collections from relatives and like sensitive, emotional, real human stuff attached to it. And if they've done a quick Google and they've decided the 4 bottles they're bringing in are going to, pay for a funeral, and it turns out you're really only looking at a couple of £100, that's really difficult to try and talk someone down in a pleasant way that's not going to have them running out of the office screaming, but also, so that they realistically then don't think, well, I'll go talk to someone else, and they have to have the same conversation again. It's really difficult. And I had to do it quite a few times, and that's hard. You already mentioned Bell's decanters were an absolute prime for that. They were sold to people as this. They're going to be a pension, put it away for the grandkids. You can send them to uni on it, and they're not the slightly strange looking decanters with very basic Bell's liquid in it. And most auction houses won't accept them because they tend to be quite fragile and leak, which also is a problem of its own. But it's just not, people are not willing to heavily invest in it unless it's like they're really into one of the characters or the people that's on the decanter itself. The liquid inside is, not particularly collectible, I think we would.
But then we have had what was always quite nice as well. Like, we spoke to a person that came in and they're like, my son is going to university, I need to raise this amount of money. And you would go in and you would curate what will make that value to minimize the sale, because for him, they only want to sell it to up to that point because that was the money they need to go to university. So like, it's really good that you can go and help people as well. We're not there to give financial advice or anything like that, but we can say currently we think like we have seen a trend in this particular distillery, or this is we know our buyers are looking particularly for these kind of bottles, and it was quite nice to see that. Sure. Because you don't want to thin anyone out of their whole collections when they don't need to. Like, you're there to build a long-term relation with them. And if they only need to get rid of, we say, 10 bottles rather than 150 bottles, they might be really happy with that. And I think that's a big things that people are missing out with it as well. Like, you're there to help the seller as much as possible, as the same as with the buyers, because you also want to make your auction look interesting. So you have that kind of two things in your head when you go in and talk to someone. And it's also, there could be someone has passed away, as we talked about. Like, it's not always a nice conversation to have. We had someone to turn up with a bottle of Johnny Walker, which was the kind of love of their life. There was a parent that passed away.
Yeah, it was her dad's Johnny Walker Blue Label, and it was the thing that when... And I'm sure it still happens now. When people came around to the house, he took it out of the cupboard, and it was like his pride and joy. And she... we really did talk to her quite a long time. We explained that this bottle was not going to... Although it was her dad's pride and joy, was not going to do the mega money. And it was then, well, perhaps it was better if she took the bottle home and had it as like a memory to him in the house. But it did go for auction, and she was okay with it. She's the lady that also was like, oh, I've got this carrier bag of other whiskey. And we were like, okay, good, let's change the subject slightly. Let's get these other bottles out, see what else we're working here.
You mean these crap whiskies?
Whilst crossing your fingers that it wasn't like a bag of Chivas Regal from the 70s or something. But and what she brought out was all the first editions of Brewer. She had like 12 of them. And we were like, oh, so these are worth like a lot of money. And she was like, oh, I've been pouring them down the sink. I gave one to the decorator. One of them's gone to the church. Genuinely, one of them's gone to the church. Fate. And we were like, so what church was that? We'll buy all the raffle tickets. And she couldn't get her head around this. She's like, but my dad was never bothered about these. These lived in the loft. These were just like a secondary thought. It was the Blue Label that was in the living room, in a cabinet, on display. Was for everybody to see. She really could not get her head around it at all. And she wanted to buy a bench in memorial for her dad in the local park with a plaque on it. And we were like, you can have like 10 benches. Like, you can have a whole row of benches if that's what you want. And she really, when she rang up to ask how the bottles had done, the only thing she wanted to know about was that Blue Label. She didn't give a monkey about these brewers that the rest of us were like, oh my God, look at these.
I think as well though, like when it comes down to that story, like you as an auctioneer, you really try to them to keep that possession, because a lot of people do regret it. So they like, at this time we didn't manage to do it, but a lot of time, because it was like, I just don't want to be reminded. A lot of times when they're on the edge, it's quite nice to say, just you keep that. If you want to come back, we're still open. Come back in a year's time if you feel you want to get rid of it. But keep it for now. And that's quite a nice little thought, especially when they think the pride and joy is actually not what's going to make them money. Like when they bring out these fantastic brewers in Port Ellens.
Honestly, it was one of those like, what, this is it? She was like, oh, you mean like I should have kept the other ones that I was just throwing down the drain? Like, oh. Yeah, that was. So I mean, that was kind of like halfway through. That wasn't even the early days of me being at the auctions. Like, so I think it's funny. Like, it's very easy, especially when you're on Facebook, seeing all these, people sharing stories about the flippers and all that kind of stuff. It's very easy to forget. There is still the vast majority of it is attached to humans who are just trying to make their way in some small way. Maybe they're trading out whiskies. Maybe I know people who have used it to fund weddings, to buy cars, to send kids to university, to go and see relatives that they haven't seen in decades on the other side of the world. Like, I've got tons of really nice little, really human stories that in my mind, when I'm also like you guys, getting annoyed about the flippers, I think about the people who were coming in and trying to do some good. People who, when there'd been natural disasters in various places around the world, felt so moved that they auctioned off huge swathes of their collections to send as humanitarian relief. Like normal, everyday people who just wanted to contribute in some way they could. And so that whiskey allowed them to do something good. Now, whether or not the whiskey that was sold then meant it went and sat in somebody's collection, maybe it was passed through auction houses, another few set of hands, or maybe it accidentally ended up in a tasting with some people in Glasgow who drank it and talked nice stories in the Bon Accord on a Monday night. It would be cool to kind of track where whiskey ends up. I think that would be fun, but I think, there's good happening, and I have to, in the dark moments of thinking about the whiskey industry, I have to hang on to the fact that the four of us, but especially you and I, Chris, have been offered the opportunity to try some incredible whiskies that there's literally no other way we would have had.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that we talked a lot about because of the tastings we're doing, but also the people we're meeting. I'm very happy that someone bought this bottle, it sat in their cupboard for 50 years for someone else to enjoy. Like, yeah, they maybe will make someone happy. We know collectors that just collect whiskey. They just love whiskey. They don't drink whiskey. They just love the story, the history, all of it. But it gives them what a painting will do. But they're not into paintings. Like, we have met people that we have talked to, and they bought a case of, we'll say, Ardbeg Lord of Dials. And they've gone through and they've sold one of them. They paid for the rest of them. And they basically say, the rest of the 5 we're drinking, come over here and you're going to try it if you haven't tried it yet. You know, all of that gives us opportunity. And as we are meeting up with each other, we also have whiskies that we each other haven't tried. And it's the same mentality, I think. It's about sharing and giving. And it's like everything. It's 2% that's bad, but that's going to color your whole insight of the industry, which is very wrong. Like, the industry is very generous, and I think whiskey people are very generous. I haven't met any other people that's so generous with, as Jess said, time, their liquid, as the whiskey industry has been.
I'm open to bribery, though. I mean, if somebody works in a different industry and wants to give me a selection of vintage Aston Martins, or
I'm really into watches,
access to some vintage watches, or a really big selection of, I don't know, chocolate. Like, I mean, come at me, Jess at singlecasknation.com. You can get hold of me there.
I'm also into Lego, by the way. Like,
vintage Lego. I feel like we should also say this podcast is not sponsored by Big Whiskey, because we've just got a bit kind of doe-eyed about it, which will incense people massively. People are tuning in. They're so ready. They're like on the edge of their seats for us to be like, and another thing about flippers. And so far, we've not done that. Sorry, guys. We're just teasing you.
So you've set me up perfectly, because you did such an incredible job turning Joshua's hot potato into a touchy-feely, warm moment
A delicious baked
with
potato
people
with cheese.
supporting benches for their dads. I would be remiss if I didn't lob my own hot potato at you.
Please do.
That I'm asking because I want to hear your on-the-wax response to this. And then we can start tasting some whiskey together. So there are rumblings that auction houses have ruined whiskey. We have seen Diageo annual pricing go north. We have seen an inability to get certain bottles at retail because they all get bought up and put on auctions. I'm guessing you don't think auctions have ruined whiskey. But what do you say to those who lob that hot potato at you?
Okay, so I think we need to take a step back again. Because I like taking a step back and
I never thought
see
you
the
would come
bigger.
into this as some sort of like neutral Swede. I was really expecting you to come in all guns blazing.
No, but I think like as whiskey
And another thing.
yeah. Let me do the 10 things I'm going to talk about.
What a definitive list.
Yeah,
Josh was
exactly.
really into them.
I think when it comes down to it, it's kind of the whiskies be pushed to make more sales every year. Is it the auction that have changed that, or is it the big business that have changed that? They're opening up new markets. They're bringing out new releases. They're telling you need to get this new release. Going back 10 years, the releases per year per distillery were maybe 4 or 5. Now you're looking at 10. They're all single malt, they're all single casks. They're driving that themselves. They will be looking what auctions and what they can achieve in auctions. And of course, the auction will be some reflection to that. But that will only give you a certain time spot and a certain date when you sell a product. So if someone is selling a bottle that should cost £100 and it sells in auction for £1,000, it's 2 guys that are willing to buy for £1,000.
You're right.
And that's where it comes from. That is literally going down to the private client that they already deals with. And if you're not good enough to be on the private client, you don't get the bottle. Then you need to start forking out more money. So I think it's actually driven by them. It's not driven by auction. It's driven by retailers that see what they can make. Like, I think it's very unfair to blame it all on auctions. I think everyone is if we want to call it the problem, everyone is the problem, really. It's the guy that's willing to spend £1,000.
Sure.
We're asking also distilleries to bring out something special so you can show that and say, look at me, I managed to get this, but you didn't. So I think it's a very, we can talk about an hour probably just about that and what each of the compartments in the whiskey industry is driving this pricing. It's also, we didn't lay down enough stock. We also talk about stock being very rare. Is it very rare? That's a big question coming back at you guys. No, I'm joking.
Well, that's outrageous because famously at Single Cask Nation, we don't like to keep our listeners or fans happy. We refuse to sell it. So it's all very rare.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that is kind of...
We're about to do a special release of 70,000 bottles. Very limited.
All at 85 years old.
Very special.
Yeah, but that's also...
All at 85 years
That's also something I think is very funny. But what is a limited release? Is it a single cask or is it 22,000 bottles? 100,000 bottles? They obviously know their market and they do huge market research. They're big money behind it. And I don't think it's just us driving it. I think old bottles, yes, the prices has been driven by collectors, but also we all talk about the Black Bowmore. If you have tried it, you need to try it.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to spend £500, you're 30 people, you're putting that together, you can buy that bottle.
Where are you selling Black Bowmore for £500?
No, per person. Everyone contributes.
Yeah. I've got 500 pounds right here. Give me
I
a
was like,
bottle of
let me
that
just get my
Black
purse.
Bowmore now.
I think you are right for all of my facetiousness. I think it's not as cut and clear as the idea of did auction houses ruin everything. Auction houses are really only responding to the demand. I think, as usual, we have ruined it for ourselves. That's why we can't have nice things, is everybody got too giddy and started putting 10-year-old Springbank into auction. because they thought they could make an extra buck, and it turns out they can. So that's upsetting if you're a Springbank fan. I think the throwaway to that should be stop being hung up on Springbank 10-year-old. Come back to it when it's not the thing everyone's looking for. When everyone's zigging, do a zag. Make Fettercairn 12 your new thing. Actually, I said that. That's mean. The new Fettercairn, very good. Fettercairn 16. Make that your new thing. Been the Springbank for a while. Go and try something else. That's why single casks are great, because you can't get attached to them, because once you've had it, it's done.
See, this is the thing, though. You guys are so obsessed with this kind of Scotch thing. I'm just saying Westland, you know. Hoo hoo. No, I'm joking. World whiskies for me, you know.
West too.
I think world whiskies, I think is a really cool thing. And I think that, like, as we're talking about, like, these certain brands get very popular, there are other whiskies out there that you can go and find as well. And you can be very excited about. And, like, seeing what's...
But you're talking about it from a drinker's perspective, which is, in my opinion, the right perspective, right? It's so many of these bottles have reached the point of unobtainium. And meanwhile, what have you been doing for the past X number of years? You've been following flavor. And what, like, the world whiskey has totally opened that up, and they're still accessible from a pricing standpoint, whether it's on auction or elsewhere.
But I can't remember. But someone was saying maybe the whiskey of the old days were so underpriced of what actually they should have cost. Maybe today we have reached what whiskey should cost. That's also a question that can be brought out there. Was it too cheap?
Yeah.
That's an unpopular question.
It's a very unpopular question.
And I'm glad that you don't have to regularly face people by saying, look, previously, all far too cheap. Because let me tell you, if I go into retailers saying, look, these prices are the price, everything else previously, far too cheap, they're going to say, there was the door. Please shut it when you're on the other side.
It's a good argument, well worth making.
Another question for you, but it's really sort of a closing question, and I thought it might be good for us to use this time, unless you disagree, for us to use this time to taste through these 4 final Macbeth whiskeys, and we can maybe have some liquid courage to potentially answer this final hot potato that I throw in your lap. But I also realize, you know, I'm one of 2 hosts, so Jason, I didn't want to cut you off if there's something you wanted to get to before we taste.
I was the same as you. I was asking myself, do I want to ask a follow-up about Brexit, or do I want to taste these Macallan whiskies with friends? And I decided I wanted to taste these Macallan. Macbeth. I know. Today's podcast has been brought to you by Macallan.
That was a trick question, because I think none of them are Macallans. So ignore that. Don't let him persuade you otherwise.
Yeah, I decided I wanted to taste these Macbeth whiskies with friends. So
Jason, you've got all the paperwork and all of the rules. So why don't you take us and our listeners through this, because you're much smarter at this stuff than
Jason, you're the one that's done all the preparation. Why don't you introduce our listeners to this? So we've tasted. Right? Let's start at the beginning. Elixir, along with a marketing agency and Sir Quentin Blake, put out 9 Macbeth-themed whiskies. Mm-hmm. And our good friend Oliver Chilton and team sent us 8 of the 9 samples. We did not get the King Duncan £10,000 55-year-old Glen Grant, which is fine. We're still friends with Ollie. It's okay. We've still pressed ahead and done the tastings. So we tasted samples 1 and 2 a couple of episodes ago, or a few episodes ago now, and we found out that one was Satan, Seyton, and one was The First Witch, and The First Witch has been an absolute favourite of mine. In our last episode, we tasted samples 3 and 4, and we found out they are Lady Macduff and Angus. And we guessed the first 3 correct. We got Angus wrong. We thought Angus was Menteith, and that left us hanging a little bit. We made a decision that to wrap up the 4 whiskies, the 4 samples together made more sense than sampling another 2 and then only leaving ourselves 2 characters for the final 2 samples. That didn't seem like it was going to be much fun. So we are going through, there are 4 of us, there are 4 samples, and there are 4 characters to pair with these samples. So I will give you the characters and you can begin to think as you're nosing through samples 5, 6, 7, and 8. We are looking
5,
for...
6, 7, 8.
It's good, baby.
We're looking for Menteith still. We're looking for First Ghost. We're looking for First Murderer. And we're looking for the Bloody Sergeant. And I have 4 descriptors that I will read in due course. But the way we've been doing this is sticking our nose in. Sometimes, Jess, dedicated to you, we will have a little chat about colour.
Thanks,
but
guys.
we also have been sticking our nose in and just having a wee chat about what we're getting. So when you, Jess and Chris, when you stick your nose in, what do you get on sample number 5?
I'll let you start. Chris is anxious because I've asked how often, as I assume he has done regularly, has he read Macbeth?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you read that in high school in Sweden?
So I haven't read any of his stuff. So
All right. He's overrated. Don't worry about it.
He's also very dead. He doesn't know that you said that.
I'll do it in time when I'm sitting with a whiskey and 65 years old and retired and.
It's really embarrassing that these 2 have only got 1 to 8 samples and we've got 1 to 9. So
I know.
Whoa, the truth shall set you free,
right.
Jess. Whoa.
that's a joke, Ollie. But if you want to send me the 9th one, I'm okay with it. Team Yorkshire.
You're
forever.
happy to keep it under your hat.
Team Yorkshire.
All right.
Is there a difference
5.
between Macbeth and in the big Macbeth? Is that 2 all beef patties, special
I
sauce?
thought you were going for the big Macbethski.
Big Macbeth.
How do you feel about number 5?
So number 5, I think it's one of these kind of nice people pleaser. It's like quite light and like
really?
kind of
you don't
summery.
Get unctuousness on the nose.
Oh, don't be careful. Careful with your nose texture words, guys. I'm still not fully subscribed to this.
Remember that this
see,
is my
that's
second
interesting,
language.
like-
Oh,
So don't use big words. Use simple words. I do struggle following One Nation on the whiskey when all the big words is thrown around.
you were the one who brought up accessibility. You could describe this in Swedish to our Swedish listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do have to drink when someone says accessible. That's a rule implemented by Jess.
That's from my old wine days.
So you'd mentioned that there's sort of a lightness in character and accessibility to this, and I got inviting and I got fruity, but it had a bit of heft in the background to it, and it almost like a burnt granola kind of note going on in the background too. So it's fruity, but for me on the nose,
I'm going to give you an obscure nosing note while Chris drinks that. I think it smells like the when I was a child, we used to get sherbet fountains, and they used to come wrapped. It was like a cardboard tube with like a paper wrap around the outside, and it had fizzy sherbet and it had a licorice straw in the middle of it. And the theory was you were supposed to be able to like use the licorice, I think, either to like soak up the sherbet or as a dip. I hate licorice, so I immediately used to palm that off to my mother. But I think it smells like the wrapping paper for it. That was where my brain went today.
Oh wow!
I like it.
So when wrapping paper, are you talking? So sometimes we'll talk about whiskeys that have this cardboardy note, which you'd say is kind of fainty, and there's some distilleries that are kind of famous for having a bit of a faintiness. Are you going there? And by fainty for our listeners, like the tails, right? Heads, hearts, tails. The Scots call it the faint. So, are you going there with that sort of like packaging note?
A little bit, but
paper wrapper note.
a little bit, but it's still got that kind of. You can still kind of smell. There's like a savoury, licoricey bit to it. It's really making my mouth water.
Not that I've been nosing through all of them, but I know exactly which character number 7 is.
That's cheating.
Oh,
You're doing the thing where,
interesting.
like,
Okay.
it was always
Well-
me at school. One person who reads ahead while the class is reading out one line at a time.
I will probably be behind them when it
But-
came to the reading.
Ooh. Oh, well,
The
if you get,
thing is,
if you get
when we
number
were-
7 wrong, we're going to be very disappointed in you. That's what happens.
Right. When we were doing the last couple of tastings of these, and we kept reading one character who had some distinct notes that wasn't showing up in any of the samples so far. As soon as I got to sample 7, I was like, that's the character we have not found a home for. I know exactly who that is. So that's
So
good.
okay, so I'd been nosing sample number 5 this
Yes.
whole time. Sample
Yes,
number
yes.
6, going through my cursory first sniff.
Yes, yes.
Sample number 6 was by far the biggest, fruitiest / oldest smelling liquid. Right back to, I don't know if it was the last taste. Yeah, I think it was the last tasting where I said, this one has that note of some of the 1950s 1950s Glenfarclas we've had, where it's just like, it's a note that can only be described as an extended period of time in cask, right?
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and I'm getting that in 6, and then in 7, like that is off the bat, that is funk, like, but a bready kind of funk going on, much lighter in color, and then 8, it's almost as if you took nori, like seaweed, nori seaweed, and sort of like dipped it into soy sauce. It kind of has this sort of umami kind of thing going on in the nose. And so those were the 4 things that I got. And to my mind, I don't remember the description of the characters. But I'm curious as to know why you think Jason 7 has to be.
Well, let me use this time while Jess and Chris are nosing all 4 samples here. Let me remind you and the listeners what we're looking for here. So Menteith is still up for grabs. The description: maturity brings forth a relaxed air. This is now a life of ermine, the satisfaction of sweetmeats and spices, fruits and flowers. Yet for all the damask rose and sandalwood, at the core lurks a hint of smoke. Comfort pushed aside and darkness embraced, the muscles flex anew, power grows, it will act. So that's Menteith. First Ghost is a bit poetic here. Dismissed too easily, the eyes move away, daring to doubt the spirit. Gold glitters on the helm, the voice soft but persistent, the execution firm. Resist disbelief for sweet reward, or regret will haunt you. We also had mentioned in prior episodes that the first Ghost, the Ghost series, comes from closed distilleries. So you can keep that in mind as we go. First Murderer, pallid, with a reek of wood smoke and tallow candles, salt sweat on the brow, lean-shanked yet muscular, downtrodden, dismissed and angry, a denizen of the darkest taverns. For a few coins, as night falls, a throat will feel its bite, a child will die, money runs thicker than blood. And before I read the Bloody Sergeant, a reminder that these tasting notes come from Dave Broom, supplied to this project. And so finally, the Bloody Sergeant, the rough hemp of the tunic stiffened with clotted blood, the wearied walk through the thickened glower of autumn woods, surviving on a diet of acorns and stewed tea, a solid and trustworthy messenger, a worker, a warrior. Not for him the comfort of the palace. His is a life willingly given to service. And I cannot help but think number 7 is the Bloody Sergeant.
Yes.
Interesting. So, as you were reading the first murderer, I was thinking number 7 for
Okay.
first murderer.
Okay, I just think that hemp is a note that I can't help but get in this whiskey.
Okay. Well, let me taste that one.
Oh
So
gosh.
I haven't tasted. Have Jess and SwedeScot, have the both of you tasted
We have.
these whiskeys
And
yet?
because neither of us are competitive in the slightest.
Please, dear listener, take that with a gigantic eye wink. Please continue, Jess.
So I'm pretty confident I know what number 8 is.
Oh.
And I also would have said number
Ooh.
7. It's 5 and 6. I'm
Ooh.
swithering about. Now I've listened to those descriptors.
Right.
I feel like I'm dithering. But I'm also worried that this is
Okay.
going to be an exact repeat of the London Whiskey Show, where we had to blind test as part of the Taste of Westland, and I was famously misquoted, and I'm still upset about it. And I was right. So I feel like I've got a streak that I have to maintain.
I will go on record to say that Jess did get 4 out of 4. I will go on record this time only.
Listeners, I can't tell you. I didn't pay him to say that, and there isn't enough money in my bank to make him admit out loud that I was right if he didn't want to.
I feel
we
like
covered this in the mailbag episode this
matter.
year as well. Like, doesn't this come up
feel-
every
yeah.
I
time
feel
you
like I'm
two are
never going to be
together?
over this.
Oh man,
Not that I famously,
you're rehashing the mailbox here.
famously hold a grudge.
All right, so
I feel like
Jess, Jess,
number,
yes, number 8 is, you think?
I think number 8 is our first ghost, severed head.
So do I. I feel that, and I feel number 5 is Menteith.
Yes.
Okay, so let's
that
pause,
what we
pause
had
for
there?
a
Mentions
second.
that with
Pause.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Pause for a second. So we're hearing 7, Bloody Sergeant, rough hemp of the tunic stiffened with clotted blood. Number 8. Now, we haven't actually heard any nosing or tasting notes for number 8 yet. So when we read the ghost, did you say ghost or murderer for number 8?
Ghost. Because I think it's a
Ghost,
clever
okay.
reference. I think it's a clever reference because, as we've discussed, and you have discussed in previous times, the Ghost is a closed distillery, which is Cambus.
Yeah.
So that would be where my money would go
so
with that.
this-
I was going to
too
say this has a
easily.
grain
The eyes move away.
note to it.
Daring to doubt the spirit. Gold glitters on the helm, the voice soft but persistent, the execution firm. Resist disbelief for sweet reward or regret will haunt you. And then it's got some of that grain brightness to it.
It's got a gorgeous,
A little bit of
grainy, gluey note to it,
Grain
which is...
citrus.
It's another one of these, you know, when you pour people grain whiskies and they're like, no way, that's a grain. You're like, yes.
I feel like it's a very
It
velvety
reminds me of our
Good texture.
yes.
which is, I think,
It reminds me of the
it comes down with Cambus. I think it's as a grain distillery, that was one that was very velvety, very like mouth coating, like kind of going down that kind of wheat end of stuff. Like it just coats your mouth.
I'm really,
And it
really pleased that we're doing these 4 like this, because if we had done 6 and 7 alone, I think 7 and 8 would have been really easy and an absolute slam dunks. So having the 4 of them, we've already identified 7 and 8, even in the 4. Hopefully we're right. Joshua, you've been waiting to make comment?
yeah, just that number 8 reminds me quite a lot of our own 28-year-old canvas that we did 6 months in Muscatel. It has that creamy kind of velvety quality to it. So it seems we're all 4 of us in a consensus there with first ghost for number 8.
Yep.
We haven't, and I suggested number 5 was Menteith. We haven't talked about number 6. What do you guys think about Menteith?
Menteith has given us such problems. I feel burned from our last episode, and the quote from Shakespeare under Menteith is, "Revenges burn in them, for their dear causes would, to the bleeding and the grim alarm, excite the mortified man." That's exactly how I feel internally, trying to correctly identify Menteith.
But it talks about there being a delicate hint of smoke going on in Menteith somewhere, and that has a very delicate hint of smoke, doesn't it?
Yes. For all the damask rose and sandalwood, at the core lurks a hint of smoke. Comfort pushed aside and darkness embraced.
And there's sandalwood on the nose. It's got that almost, Buddhist temple kind of
Which
smell
then
to it.
means, do we then think, Jess and Chris, do you agree? Do you think Menteith is in the lead at number 5? Do you have a conviction about number 6?
I think you and I are in agreement. I think we think 5 is the Bloody Sergeant, 6 is Menteith, 7 is the first murderer, and 8 is the first ghost.
Oh. Whoa. I thought we
that's
agreed.
different.
Oh my gosh, I thought you were in agreement with me, Jess, that 7 was
still
for
kind
Sergeant.
I'm still swithering about the Sergeant and Menteith, but
Bloody Sergeant.
the Bloody Sergeant, as opposed to a Bloody Mary. I think there's a kind of, it's the mention of the smoke that's kind of throwing me out a little bit. It's the fact that 5 is so, it's got fruitiness to it, and strawberries and straw, which I associate much more with Blair Atholl. I also don't think I remember Menteith as a character. It's a long time since I read Macbeth. So that's the problem. The first one that you guys have done, you had like quite distinguishable characters.
Yeah, getting tripped up between Menteith and Angus as characters, I feel like they take up about the same amount of the play.
So here's the thing, though. Menteith says that there's a bit of smoke going on in there. I'm not finding a hint of smoke anywhere on sample number 6. It's very loud and proud in sample number 7.
Yeah.
You can't find it in sample number 8.
Correct.
We all agree that that's a grain and likely canvas.
Yeah.
Where sample 5 is the only one that has that hint of smoke.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah, it's like a kind of wisp of, when you start a fire and you're just on the kind of first bit of the kindlings, it's a little... Whereas, 7 is definitely unmistakable, in your face, punchy.
So does that change your mind? Does that have you switching Menteith to number 5
Nah,
and
I'm staying with
the
Menteith
first
is 6.
murderer to number 6?
No, Menteith is 6 for me. You're going to change your mind, Chris?
I think I need to go with my birthday buddy. Like, maybe I need to change the camp. Like, we're born on the same day, like...
Kimbo.
Sagittarius wins.
Yeah, I think I need to do it. He did such a good, converting me over to it, so
You're such a people pleaser.
Yeah, that's me. I'm famous for it.
I also think it's because the number 6 is a bit richer and a bit more full-bodied, and to me that makes me think it's an older whiskey, somewhat. Whereas the the one that is the Bloody Sergeant is younger tasting to my... So that's why I made it 5. I'm also doing pointing, which the listeners are going to be really enjoying because they can't see any of it.
So wait a second. We believe Bloody Sergeant was sample number 7, correct?
No, I think it is number...
So we did.
5.
I have changed my mind. I keep rereading First Murderer, and First Murderer says pallid, which means pale, with a reek of wood smoke and tallow candles.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I'm getting more reek of wood smoke than I am hemp. So
Yeah.
I feel like First Murderer makes much more sense as number 7.
Definitely the pallid thing does it for it. Yeah.
That was my initial guess.
The pallid does it for me. Tallow candles is such a weird and specific note. I know what a tallow candle is, but I've never had one in my house. I don't know if I'd know what the smell was, but I get the kind of gist of it. Do you know what a tallow candle is?
No, what I'm thinking about is like a sauna, in number 7. You know, like just that kind
it's
of
the wood smoke.
and like if you
Right.
actually have a wood,
sure.
proper wood fired sauna, that's kind of more. And I know that's your reference down to Lafroig, but
So
that has.
our international listeners may not know what a tallow candle is. It's a candle that's made from animal fat.
Yeah, I just remember tallow being used to cook chips in chippies when I was growing up. And I may have told Steve Hawley how much I enjoyed the chips the last time I was in the whiskey bar on 2nd Avenue in Seattle. And he said, yeah, they'll be cooked in beef fat. I was like, don't tell me that right now. Just don't tell me that. And I said to him, they were like the chips of my youth. And all the chips of my youth were cooked in tallow. So there we go. That was a fun one for the vegetarian. That was the day I met you two as well.
The chips opposite here are all cooked in beef fat. The chip shop opposite us still uses animal fat. That's why it smells so good. Those chips were excellent. If those were the chips you were eating when we met you, primo.
They are. They were. Yep. Joshua.
So I have my 4 guesses here, but I'm just to make sure that I'm correct, or I think I'm. So it's just so long as I feel comfortable. How's that? Could you just do one last time? Read me the Bloody Sergeant.
Yeah. So we're pretty clear that 8 is the ghost, and we think it's Canvas.
First ghost. Yep.
7 is the first murderer, and we have not identified a distillery on that yet. Number so that's those 2. Let me read you Menteith, and then I'll read you the Bloody Sergeant.
Okay.
So Menteith, maturity brings forth a relaxed air. This is now a life of ermine, the satisfaction of sweetmeats and spices, fruits and flowers. Yet for all the damask rose and sandalwood, at the core lurks a hint of smoke, comfort pushed aside and darkness embraced. The muscles flex anew, power grows, it will act. And then, Bloody Sergeant. The rough hemp of the tunic stiffened with clotted blood, the wearied walk through the thickened glower of autumn woods, surviving on a diet of acorns and stewed tea, a solid and trustworthy messenger, a worker, a warrior. Not for him the comfort of the palace. His is a life willingly given to service.
Man, I tell you, I feel overly confident. I have the confidence of a middle-aged white man that Menteith is sample 5, that first murderer is sample 7, that first ghost is sample 8. But the Bloody Sergeant doesn't seem to match sample 6.
Okay. Let's leave that hanging for a second. Jess and SwedeScot,
okay.
Once again, your guesses in order.
So Chris and I are now disagreeing because he's trying to buddy up with his birthday buddy. I am remaining that sample 5...
Happy birthday.
I'm remaining that sample 5 is the Bloody Sergeant, 6 is the Menteith,
Okay.
7 is the first murderer, 8 is the first ghost.
Okay, so we've got a 5 and 6 swap.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't done this previously, although I do remember saying when we had our 2 samples last time, the 4 characters we were looking at were all 31-year-old single malts, were the 4 characters that we'd identified as being potentials with the 2 we were looking at. I can tell you the 4 whiskies we have not yet revealed, and I'm not going to attach these to sample numbers, I'm just going to tell you, one of these 4 is a Benriach 31-year-old.
I know which one that is.
One is a Blair Athol 10-year-old. One is a Cambus 31-year-old. And one is a Lechig 18-year-old. Now, we're pretty convinced 8 is Cambus 31. Mm-hmm. We're pretty convinced 7 is the first murderer. And I would think that has to be a Lechig 18-year-old.
Lechig. Yeah.
Right? Which then leaves us samples 5 and 6, Menteith and Bloody Sergeant, choosing between Benriach 31-year-old and Blair Athol 10-year-old.
So there's no way sample 6 is 10 years old.
Right.
It's got the reek of a much older whiskey and has the fruitiness that you would get in older Benriachs. So it's got to be Blair Athol 10 for 5, Benriach 31 for 6, Blachig 18 for 7, and Cambus 31 for 8.
So my question, Joshua, is now that you've heard the distilleries, have you switched your character guesses?
Yes, he has.
No.
Because you've now just come to Jess's side, and Jess was disagreeing with SwedeScot, and SwedeScot was agreeing with you.
I think I'm right.
I still feel that the description that Dave Broom provided for Menteith matches that what we assume to be the 10-year-old Blair Athol too closely, because I'm not getting any smoke in sample number 6, and I was getting sandalwood and a slight floral character out of sample number 5, and floral, sandalwood, and a hint of smoke are all coming through on sample 5.
Okay, so to be clear for our listeners, Joshua and Chris think 5 is Menteith. Jess thinks 6 is Menteith. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, let's.
I like that
let's
you've
just jump
counted
into
yourself
the...
out, birthday buddy. You're supposed to be on my side.
Well, if we're birthday buddies, I'm going to go with Jess in a heartbeat. No doubt about it.
Okay, good. Phew. That reassured me. Okay,
If
now you
these
can do the
birthday
big
buddies
reveal.
can do it. There we go.
Yeah.
December 6th can do it. June 27 and 29 can do it too.
Yeah.
Joshua's busy Googling something.
I've got
So
a sweaty
before we
palm.
get to the
I'm
reveal,
going to show you. This also won't help the listeners at home. I've written it down, so I'm not changing my mind.
who said the Bloody Sergeant is number 5?
Me.
Oh, birthday buddies. That is correct.
Get it up here, 6th of December.
Bloody Sergeant is number 5?
Bloody Sergeant is the, 10-year-old Blair Athol sample number 5, which means Joshua Menteith has got you again. He got you in the last episode. He's got you in this episode. He has been sneaky to you.
I didn't mean to send you down the wrong path, birthday buddy.
I feel like I was on Jess's side first, and then you convinced me. It just felt like I can't go the other way. Like, it was so convincing the way you did it. It was white man in his 50s, confidence behind you.
He's not in his 50s yet.
I'm still in my 40s. That's the amazing thing.
I will
Ixnay on the ifties, Faye.
I will confirm for everybody that number 8 is First Ghost and number 7 is First Murderer. So,
Okay.
Do you know what that means? That once again,
it means
I was right.
you got 4 out of 4, Jess. Let the record show.
Oh, yeah.
So SwedeScot and I messed up 5 and 6, but we got 7 and 8.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I think you're right,
So,
because 7 and 8,
now-
if you'd done that on its own, would be very obvious and not much of a talking point.
So my question to you all, and Jess, I'll start with you. Do you have a favorite amongst the 4?
When I was going through them,
And why?
as we were just picking them out, I was really enjoying the canvas, like, jumped out of me straight away. It was pretty obvious what it was, and it matched the description really well, and I was trying to think in the style of Dave Broom. There's a bit of a cryptic nod to stuff, so that was my ghosts on a ghost. But actually coming back and retrying this, the guy who got you, the Menteith, the Benriach 31, is really something. That is one hell of a dram. It's got so much in it.
Yep.
It's really funny listening to you describe why you thought that was the other way around to me, because all the tasting notes you were giving for it being a Menteith, which is actually the Blair Athol, all those tasting notes are things I associate with the Blair Athol. So it was kind of funny that we swapped them the other way around. But yeah, for me, that Benriach 31-year-old is a really special treat, and that's really a very delicious dram.
Yeah, really nice.
I think my favourite label, though, is the Ghost. I really love Quentin Blake. He's been, obviously, because of Roald Dahl, a feature in my whole childhood, so these would be really cool to have. So if you guys wanted to gift me the entire set, including the really expensive one, all 4 acts would be super fine, A-okay with me. I'll have them out for people to look at.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Loud and
What about you, Chris? What was your favorite amongst the 4?
I would probably go down the route of Canvas. For me, I really like Canvas. I think it's a shame we don't have Canvas anymore. I just really like that velvety palette that you get on. And as you're kind of going back and forth, like even drinking the Lecheg, it still stands up afterwards. It still says, hello, I'm here. Like,
it does. Yeah.
and I think that the number 6, the Benriach, is also gorgeous. The Blair Athol is, both of them are really, really good. But it's just, I think maybe because it's summer, maybe it's like having the chance of drinking a Canvas, I just get vacation vibes almost, like it's just really nice. It stays on. It fights with all the single malts really well. Like, it doesn't want to be quiet. It still's there. But it sounds like it's really rough, but it's not. It's just. Should we use the S word?
No.
Okay, we don't use the S smooth.
Soft, no. Yeah, I agree. Definitely soft. Definitely
soft.
Yeah.
Silky.
Yeah.
Supple.
Yeah.
For listeners, the Canvas is one of 650 bottles at 46.2% alcohol and is £299 a bottle. The Benriach 31-year-old, like the other 31-year-old Scotchies that we tasted, is $750 a bottle, coming in at 53.1% alcohol. The Lechig, changes screen here. The Lechig is 50.5% alcohol, £225 a bottle, which for an 18-year-old independently bottled Lechig is well within its money. It is one of 2,100 bottles.
Okay. So fair bit of that.
Plenty of that to go around. And then the Blair Athol at 51.8% alcohol is £95 a bottle. One of 2,800 bottles. So I think, like we discussed with Satan on that Ardmore, like, that's my phone that I failed to put back successfully. The Ardmore is a good drinker at a good price. The Blair Athol is a good drinker at a good price. The 31-year-old Scotchies, £750 a bottle, maybe a little farther up there. Canvas 31 at $299. You can decide if that's in your wheelhouse. The Witch, which remains an absolute favourite of mine, the 19-year-old Ardbeg at £550. We discussed it at the time. It kind of lives where Ardbeg currently lives. And then $225 for an 18-year-old Lechig. If I opened my wallet one day and £225 fell out, I would quite happily purchase that. You don't need to ask me my favourite of the 4, do you, Joshua?
I don't. Any guesses what my favourite of the 4 is?
The Benriach.
6, yeah.
Nailed it. Easy breezy. Fruit, right? It's all about the fruit.
These are
But
great
just
sets.
think, if you thought the Blair Athol was ticking all of your Benriach boxes, you could buy the same, fun flavour profile for £95.
No, it was ticking the tasting notes. This is ticking my experiential boxes.
So many boxes.
It's a box to a box to another box.
Pandora's box.
We need to be getting out of here, but have we drunk enough whiskey together for you to ask your your hot potato, Joshua?
I think we're primed. We're
I
ready.
hope so. My question for you would be what you think the future is of auction houses for cask sales.
Are you looking at me or are you
specifically.
looking at Jess?
I'm just looking forward.
Okay,
I'm
perfect.
excited
Whichever
for the
one you wants to receive
internal
that question.
screaming.
Where I work, we don't accept casks and we don't auction casks. There might be a change for this in the future. Who knows? I think it's an interesting venue to go down to in auction houses, and you kind of see it. It's a lot of this being sold, but I really don't think that people understand everything around it. And you guys talk about it all the time. Of if you have someone that they say you want to buy a cask, and you have these cask investment firms. It's going to be a market there, 100%. There's always going to be a market for these kind of things. I think personally, and this is me personally, I think it's a bit of a shame because people don't understand what they're buying at all. Like when it comes down to bottles, you know the bottles and you know the fill level. You maybe have tried that bottle or you're going to try it is one thing. It's a lot of money to part away of you buying a cask, and it's a lot of ifs around it, which I don't think that people get, and also legal things around it. I think the pricing of casks has gone quite high. Like, obviously, you guys talk about it from a totally different point of view, but when you see guys, as we were talking about earlier, Boste, there is £1,000, it's actually worth 350, and I think it's a bit of that is over to casks as well. People are saying, but and I've seen it on Facebook groups, they're saying, if we all club together, it will only be £250 for this bottle or for a bottle, and they don't realize everything after that. They haven't done the real maths. There are websites you can go to, and they will tell you rough estimated prices of how much it's going to be. I think it's a very slippery slope to go down if you don't really know, and it's like everything. Do your homework, look into it, and if you think it's worth buying a cask, help yourself, go and buy a cask and enjoy it. But if you don't know, don't trust your neighbour, whoever that might be, to say you should buy a cask and go to auction and buy it. I think it's, I think it's definitely going to be a market there, and it's a lot of people that want to own a cask, and they would go to auctions and they will buy it. So I think it's always going to be there from now on because we have seen it happens. So I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna decrease. I think it's probably gonna increase if it's something. You will see more on the market coming, but it won't be the prices that will. The prices won't align with what people think it should be because of there's so much around costs.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I have so many rage points that as you were talking, I was like, oh yeah, and that's another good point I'd not thought about. From the start of, it's when, I think the basic premise of it's a gamble when you bid on a bottle in an auction. You are buying these casks with no samples. So that's my first problem. You have no idea. You're selling it on a paper promise that it says Springbank on it, and you're getting a fantastic Springbank cask. You have no idea the quality of what you're getting. 2, I know on a professional level that you can't just get your name shoved on a cask and the warehouse where it's stored will accept you. There are several very vocal warehouse keepers who provide these services in Scotland who are very angry about this happening, where I turn up one day and say, hi, I'd like to see my cask, and they're like, sorry, who are you? Not all warehouses are accepting new random people to own a cask. I'm deeply suspicious of anybody bidding on a cask on the basis they think they're going to get a super delicious Tiernick. What on earth do you personally want 300 or 400 bottles for? Because you don't. And I think people don't understand you can't just turn up at your local bar or friendly retailer and say, like, hey, I've got loads of these, do you want to buy them? That there's repercussions there. I don't think people fully understand that and we would see it frequently enough in the auction, that they only see the hammer price of the bottle. They then don't factor in there's commission, delivery, local taxes. So that £100 bargain bottle could be closer to £200, maybe more, depending where you live when it arrives at your house. And that's one bottle. So now we're looking at people who are possibly getting 300 bottles. They're not aware of the excise duty, the VAT, the bottling fees, the handling fees, and frankly, the storage space to have 300 ish bottles turn up at your third floor walk up tenement in Edinburgh. You know, there's so much attached to this that I think isn't transparent, and it's very easy to feed into people who desperately want to feel like they've got their own little slice of the industry, and for rightly or wrongly they want to be involved in it because they're part of a community, and I don't think the practicalities of it are there. You know, I'm very worried that people are going to get very badly burned financially by what the implications of these things are, and the kind of the rippling out effect of that is it damages my bit of the industry where we're selling bottles to people, and we do sometimes buy casks from people, you know, and people get very confused. You know, one bad experience can quickly taint everything else, and we're in an age where it's very easy to go online and write reviews when you're furious on review websites and Facebook and social media, and to get other people riled up into a snowballing effect. I think cask sales through auction are, and I'm going to say it, I think they're very dangerous to private individuals who are not fully informed as to what the effects of it are.
But of course, there will be firms buying these casks as well. They
it
will
may not be private
have more
individuals
knowledge.
bidding at auction. Maybe it is under independent bottlers. Maybe it's investment firms. Maybe it's groups of people who are very informed and aware of the costs they're about to undertake. But I think you have to protect people who are vulnerable. And so for me, that is people who are like, oh, I've heard that if I spend 10 grand on a cask of the Speyside distillery, I can sell it this time next year for 100 grand because I read a newspaper article on it. And so in the meantime, that creates definitely a rage point of ours about hyperinflated pricing across bottles and casks. It has a damaging effect far beyond just that one person who's now out of pocket 80 grand or in their head thought they were going to get 100 grand. Or these are big numbers. We're in a very difficult time for people living. Nobody really has 10 grand to slosh around randomly.
Yeah, and that's what, like, something like this is very interesting, and it's about having the knowledge, really. Like, in the end of the day, like, if you have 10 grand and you want to spend 10 grand, help yourself, but really read up on it, really understand what you're getting yourself into. And also, as we all know, a leaky cask can get emptied very quickly.
That's before we've even got to that. Right, exactly. Whew, it's turned dark quickly. I think the safe answer is join a whiskey club, drink whiskey with your friends, go to a whiskey festival, try whiskies with your pals who maybe you wouldn't necessarily go to bar and buy a dram of it. Don't do the full jump into being like, I am gonna buy a whole cask of this at auction.
Yeah.
Does that succinct?
Nice.
I'm like fully raging now. I'm thinking about all these other rage points of it. But nobody wants to listen to a podcast of like, and at the end, the outtake is just Jess losing her shit for an hour. And another thing.
You're about to become second murderer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I'm the calming point of this whole conversation, bringing you back in.
That's why I'm going back to these lovely samples, which I got all right.
On that note.
All right. On that note, I think it might be time to wrap up this conversation. Unless, Jason, you had another question. If not, that's cool.
No, I was just going to say thanks ever so much for these two joining us and tasting with us and being honest. Can't ask for more than that from anybody. So these are conversations we have in Glasgow together, often at the Bon Accord over pints and drams. To get you on wax on this very topic has been really wonderful. So thank you both for making the time.
Yeah, and thanks to Ollie for supplying these delicious whiskies. They are great. I would be very proud of this if it's my release.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Ollie and team.
And team, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Of beautiful
Elixir
whiskies.
Distillers. So then I'll raise my glass to you three, to our listeners, to Ollie and all the folks at Elixir Distillers, and Jess, you'd mentioned it before, or Jason, you just did. These are conversations we would have at the Bon Accord, and the Bon Accord is one man down. So I'm also raising this glass to Paul McDonough yet again. So cheers and peace. L'chaim. I don't know.
Skål.
Stuff.
Skål!
Skål.
Cheers.
Skål.
Click, click.
Cheers.